Welcome back to the channel. Let's get into the wrestling news and rumors for this Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. We're starting off with this story with AEW and AEW Dynamite Blood and Guts, the big War Games match that we were supposed to get over a year ago. We never got because due to the pandemic. Now we're getting with the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle. It's now been announced it will reportedly be a one-show match, which is a very, very interesting one. Let's read this article. Last night's episode of AEW Dynamite saw the continued war of words between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. The Pinnacle and Inner Circle parlay is set for next week as the two teams build for the big Blood and Guts match on May 5th. The latest edition of the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that May 5th episode of Dynamite be a one-match show with the Blood and Guts match. There will likely be pre-tape segments throughout the episode, but the episode will be centered around the Blood and Guts match. War Games matches are typically long, and with a 5-on-5 format, the match could see a long runtime. The last War Games match and NXT both lasted over a half hour. The women's War Games went over 35 minutes, and the men's War Games match went over 45 minutes. The matches were competing in 4-on-4 format. So you're looking at probably a 45 plus minute match to do the same War Game stuff where they offset team members entering. The heels go in, the babyface go in, back and forth until all five are in the ring for each side. So it's an interesting take to have this entire show just centered around one match. It's a 2-hour show, so I guess it's gonna go shorter. Or the final hour will be set for the War Games match, the Blood and Guts match. The first hour will just be a bunch of build-up and video packages throughout, leading up to the end of the story where we get to that War Games Blood and Guts match. So it's an interesting idea for AEW to do this and have the whole show just be this one match. But they'll pop a massive rating for that second hour, definitely. Now, depends. Do they start it at the end of first going into and bleed into the second hour? How do they work that in terms for ratings? So it should be interesting to see how they'll work that. They're going unopposed, so they'll probably just get a massive rating regardless of the fact of where they put it on the show. I think they'll do first hour highlights and maybe set up other stories, video packages, maybe promos for other feuds going on. The first hour, second hour is all Blood and Guts. So it's gonna be awesome stuff. Can't wait to see how that goes down. Next story we have here is an interesting one. It's about Mickie James, recently released from WWE, calls out Vince McMahon over care package after WWE releases her. This is an interesting and seems extremely super disrespectful turn of events here from WWE. WWE reported a total revenue of $974 million for 2020 in February, and it appears the company is able to manage costs by saving on shipping expenses. Little joke there. The promotion released a number of wrestlers following WrestleMania 37, with Mickie James among those let go. On Thursday, James shared a photo of a care package, in parentheses, she received from WWE. This is the tweet from Mickie James. Dear Vince McMahon, I'm not sure if you're aware, I did receive my WWE care package today. Thank you. Hashtag always blessed and grateful. Hashtag women's wrestling matters. Seems here that she got a box with a garbage bag inside, with the contents of that garbage bag being her old gear. That's what it seems like. Obviously, it says this isn't the treatment you'd expect somebody with James' career to receive. She's a 5-time world champion, former Divas champion. It's pretty nuts as to how this went down. Yeah, I mean, if this is like not a joke, then it's pretty damn disrespectful. They were just sending in a garbage bag like that. It is her wrestling gear, if that's what it is. We don't exactly know what the contents of that is inside there, but it probably is just wrestling gear left behind or something like that. Interesting that it would be sent like that. I think maybe it's more of a joke. I just don't think Vince would actually do that, especially somebody like Mickie James. But if this is true and it just went down, it's either somebody in WWE who just decided to do it as like a joke in poor taste. I don't think Vince McMahon had much to do with this whole thing, to be honest with you. Doesn't seem like a Vince McMahon move. But this is pretty crazy that she got her release and then she got her whatever she left behind, they sent it to her in a garbage bag. That's one hell of a story right there for Mickie James. Hopefully this all gets sorted out and maybe just a big misunderstanding or a joke or whatever. Next one we have here, Daniel Bryan wants to wrestle for other companies when his WWE contract expires. Yesterday, we talked about Daniel Bryan feeling detached from that main event at WrestleMania, talking about his contract running up, and he's thinking about kind of calling it quits or just being like real part-time. So let's read this article. Daniel Bryan took part in the WrestleMania 37 meet and greet during WrestleMania week and talked about his contractual situation with WWE. Bryan is looking at exploring his options. My contract is up soon. We need to figure out what a good balance between my home life and wrestling. I never want to stop wrestling. I love it. It's just figuring that out. Bryan has repeatedly mentioned his contractual status in the past year and has hinted that his career as a full-time wrestler is winding down, desiring to spend more time at home with his 2 children. But Bryan didn't stop there, indicating that he's interested in pursuing wrestling options with both within WWE and outside of it. It'd be interesting if I could wrestle in different companies and WWE, Bryan said. That's actually something I'm trying to weasel my way into right now. Okay, that's pretty interesting. There was a lot of, before the last contract he signed, a lot of people were wondering, would he, wrestle for other companies, if he can get cleared for other companies and all that and all that jazz, before he made his in-ring return a few years back. So this is an interesting story because I don't think he will be able to wrestle for different companies and WWE unless those other companies give him like just one-shot deals, one-shot deal here, one-shot deal here, one-shot deal here, and then because he has to sign contracts with WWE unless he's like does like a handshake agreement with Vince McMahon, which I'm not sure if Vince McMahon's still doing those nowadays. If Bryan's one of those guys he will do a handshake agreement on. Doesn't make a ton of sense there. He could do something where Chris Jericho came back to the company a few years ago and just did house show matches. Didn't wrestle anything on TV for an entire, like, I think it was like a year or so. He could do that same thing, and he could just have a bunch of house show matches for WWE, and then, on his off time, go wrestle in an independent somewhere. Total possibility that can go down if he has a handshake agreement. If something contractual with WWE, I doubt he will be able to get that in his contract, that he can go and wrestle in independence somewhere else. Just if he gets injured, he's useless to WWE at that point in terms of a commodity. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense how that would work logistically, and if it would even happen. I don't think Vince McMahon's probably having that, so he may have to just go to a different company, to be honest with you. Next one here, we have an interesting story here about everybody's favorite Dave Meltzer. Charlotte Flair destroys Dave Meltzer for commenting on her cosmetic procedures. We got a rumor yesterday that her suspension is just for her to have some dental work done, right? All right, so let's get to the story. Charlotte Flair recently fired back in a big way and buried Dave Meltzer over comments he made during his radio show. It was a situation where the Queen heard enough and she needed to speak out. Dave Meltzer commented during Wrestling Observer Radio about how Charlotte Flair is getting dental work done. That is the reason for WWE suspension. She's just getting a complete makeover. That's just what happened. It's just one of those things. They make you real self-conscious about your looks, and when you're a woman in wrestling, it's one of the negatives of it, but it's a reality of it. Charlotte Flair heard this clip and then she lashed out on Meltzer for his comments. She sent it out in 2 tweets, one of which ended with "Go to hell." All right, so we have this one here. Yeah, I just listened. I thought Dave Meltzer would have learned his lesson the last time commenting about women's bodies, but apparently I'm fair game. So I get to respond again to a rumor about my body. Again, you know what? This is when I stop. Dave, go to hell. You have my number. It will take you 30 seconds to ask, as opposed to giving straight crap to your listeners. Grow up. For you, of all people, to comment on a woman's looks, do you have any shame, decency, or professionalism left at all? Find a mirror. Look hard, Dave. All right, so Charlotte Flair doesn't appreciate people talking about anything going on in her personal life. She'll be back in the ring as soon as possible. Flair apparently needed to get dental work done right now, but that doesn't mean she's out of the running for the big WrestleMania Backlash match. All right, so she probably is getting that dental work done, whatever, but the fact that he put in the whole it's a full makeover thing and the whole self-consciousness of women in wrestling and stuff like that, that's where he's taking it a little bit too far and probably should have just stayed quiet when it comes to that stuff. Dave Meltzer kind of just put his foot in his mouth, and Charlotte kind of put him in his place. Whatever. Got the guys do it too. Remember when The Rock, he got surgery for that for gyno and stuff like that. So he was wearing, that's when he was wearing a sweatsuit for all his matches when that Roman Mankind and like Royal Rumble '99, that time period. So I mean the guys get it too. Look at Roman's teeth. He has a brand new set of teeth in there. Looks great. So, they all get stuff done. They're on TV. It's part of the business. It is what it is. Dave Meltzer getting buried by Charlotte Flair. Next thing here. All right, so the big thing last week was AEW's viewership, right? It was up to 1.2 million the first week unopposed from NXT. So this week's just a little bit less, but they still hit a big one. Overnight average of 1.1 million viewers this week. They scored a 0.37 that ever coveted 18-49 demo. So they're still killing it. Now last week it was 1.219, so it dropped just a tad. Maybe it was Mike Tyson that brought it up to that 1.2, and then it just dropped down because he wasn't gonna be on the show. I thought this episode of Dynamite, this past episode, wasn't really all that great. Yesterday's episode, you can check my review for that one. I didn't think it was all that great. The best thing going is the Blood and Guts feud between Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. But in terms of a match, in terms of a show, it wasn't really all that great, but they're going unopposed. It should be interesting to see how long they can keep that over 1 million viewership going. How many weeks they can keep that going should be pretty interesting. A little bit, maybe they can create a little bit of a streak now and keep that viewership extremely high going into the future. And again, it'd be interesting to see, like I said yesterday, will they siphon off some of that Raw? The people that watch Raw watch AEW, because you do have pushing 2 million on Raw. Can they get that to come to AEW? Should be pretty interesting to see. Let's get to the final story. We're saying in the AEW vein with Tony Khan. Tony Khan on not promoting the Impact pay-per-view. Pay attention to TV ratings when booking. He went on Busted Open Radio, and how he thinks, talks about matches on Dynamite, how he thinks it's good for the show to feature longer bouts, which they do. Dynamite tends to open their shows with like long matches. Like the first match of the show is probably like 15 minutes long plus. So that's what they're doing it. I get that. I get that. Not every match can be 20 to 30 minutes concept, but having some good long matches in the show every week is very important. We don't 3 or 4 pay-per-views a month. So our pay-per-views are quarterly. They're big events, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell people you get to see great long matches on Dynamite. You're going to see 10, 15, sometimes 20, 25-minute matches. So what you're going to get on Dynamite now, again, like he said, quarterly pay-per-view, so they got to do a lot of storytelling and storyline building on TV, so you got that going. So the matches play a role in that. With AEW drawing their highest rating since their debut last week, Tommy Dreamer asked Khan how he put together a card for a typical Dynamite. In particular, he wondered if Khan pays attention to ratings trends when putting the card together. Remember, ratings are broken up by segments or hours, so it could be he's setting up matches knowing when his ratings are either going to drop or statistically when they drop and when they go up. Khan would say, yeah, I do. This week, with so many tough matches on the card, it was really tough slotting the matches. But on the other hand, based on the way a lot of stars are performing, the show rating was consistent last week. So we've gotten to a point on TV wrestling. I'm not really sure it really matters in the 2-hour card where you are, as long as you get some good time, because it's all prime time, 8 to 10 Eastern, 7 to 9 Central. These are prime hours. Anything you get there is good. So I think everybody's really clamped onto the real estate, and we're able to maintain a great audience throughout the show. There wasn't a lot of flipping in and out. Yeah, they're running unopposed, so there's no channel flipping for the most part. When I was putting together last night's show, you want big stars in those spots, and we have people who have delivered in those spots consistently. Hangman has gone out time and time again and come out and open with some great matches and started us out with some big ratings. Yeah, which he did yesterday with the match against Ricky Starks, spent like over 15 minutes. He goes on to say Ricky Starks, same thing. Both guys have been in segments coming out of the gate that have done 1 million. That's a huge match for us. Focus then turned to Impact Wrestling. Khan was asked about Knockout's Impact champion Deonna Purrazzo's desire to wrestle members of the AEW Women's Division, which is a big mistake by AEW, as they haven't done this yet. This is a great opportunity when the lackluster single stuff they've been doing with Kenny Omega and stuff like that hasn't really hit, and it hasn't really been featured, especially on AEW Dynamite. This is a mistake where they should have had Deonna Purrazzo show up on AEW and face some of that AEW women's division. Would have been a smart move for them. Khan, he would go on to say, well, Deonna's a great wrestler. That would be great for everybody. I hadn't necessarily considered unifying those titles, but that's something to see. They don't have to unify them. Just have her challenge some of the women there. The women can challenge for that title. Same way the women on the roster challenge for the NWA championship. It's the same difference. He would go on to talk about the upcoming Kenny Omega Rich Swann AEW championship versus Impact championship match at Rebellion this Sunday. Khan decided to blur the lines between reality and storyline. I think people have asked me, why haven't I gone out and spent a lot of money, Tommy, on promoting it, Omega and Swann? And I think it's when I've gone to your guys' shows, Impact, to promote cards, I've had to pay and buy ads, so that's kind of on you guys. But there's a little free ad from me that this weekend Kenny Omega is coming up to Impact Wrestling, and he's going to be wrestling for the world title. It's possible Rich Swann could be the AEW champion next week. It's also quite possible Kenny Omega will be the Impact Triple A champion, and of course AEW World Champion. We'll see next week. So he kind of stayed in storyline, but kind of kept it real. He has to buy ads to go over there, so he doesn't want to. So he's saying that's on Impact. I don't really know how much to buy into that stuff. I think it's missed opportunity, not trying to elevate Impact as well to make this whole thing feel even bigger. I think that's a missed opportunity. Whatever the financials may be, I think it's a missed opportunity for him not to, hype up Impact on his show. So they're doing the partnership. You hype up Impact on the show. It's beneficial to both because now Impact seems more important than they did before. But guys, that's the news we have for you guys today. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Remember to hit that chair in the corner before it hits you first and subscribe to the channel. Drop me a like because it helps a lot with the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.